Recently, after I did that bendy review, I kind of stumbled into the rabbit hole of collecting bootleg Famicom cards. It's honestly a really stupid hobby. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone because you're just paying for fake bootlegs. I mean, at least collect the original. So I was kind of drawn to it because of some of the stupid cartridge labels. In front here, we see we have games like Robocop 2, Dead Fox, where we got like a Han Solo and some anime characters. Mortal Kombat vs. Bruce Lee 2. This is actually Spartan X 2. About this game, Policeman FBI, Super, 1999. With the Resident Evil characters, Star Wars Nintendo 64 character on the cover. This is actually Golgo 13. Arthur Robin, where you have Bruce Willis and Robin Hood and some cat anime guy. This is actually a Lupin the Third game. Little Nemo the Dream Master. Who doesn't recognize this classic characters from Little Nemo the Dream Master? The Tunisher, which is of course the Punisher. But then I also somehow ended up with this game. If you zoom in a bit, you can see it says 9 Gloden Dragons. This is actually a collection of 9 different Chinese games, primarily from a company called Asder. This isn't their label on the cover, but I played these a little bit and they're actually rather interesting. So why don't we take a look at them?
So the first game on the list is Huang Di. The full title of the game is actually Huang Di Zhou Jijian, which Google translates into Yellow Emperor, The War. This is actually one of the very rare Taiwanese fully original games that isn't some sort of ROM hack or modification of another game. It's actually a pretty standard action platformer where you choose from one of these two dudes and then go out and cut down monsters and get power-ups. The controls are a little bit stiff and here's a bit of a cheat code for you. If you hold down the jump button, you will just jump forever. See you later. I don't know if the jump thing is intentional. There are some places where you can't really proceed until you defeated all the monsters on the screen, but overall it seems pretty well made. And like I said, it's a completely original game, so that at least counts for something. The second game is simply called Chibi on the list. But when you boot it up, you find out it's actually a ROM hack of Warriors of Fate, a Capcom arcade brawling game. The original Warriors of Fate is actually pretty cool. You got a bunch of different characters all with their own special moves, and you can ride horses into battle, giving you access to different kinds of special moves. Now of course you get none of the horse stuff, and most of the special moves are gone. The controls are also a little bit stiff, and it doesn't even seem like you can do basic comboing like you can in games like Double Dragon and Final Fight. Many Dynasty Warriors fans might pick up on the name Chibi, as it is a reference to the Battle of the Red Cliffs, which was a pivotal battle fought between Liu Bei and Cao Cao by the end of the Han Dynasty. Now the full name of the third game on the list is Xing Ji Wu Shi. Probably didn't pronounce that correctly, but the English name at least is The Romance of the Three Kingdoms, The Fight of the Heroes Pleiades. This is a fighting game with 6 different characters from Romance of the Three Kingdoms. In it you're able to play as Guan Yu, Zhang Fei, Huang Song, Cao Ren, Mei Ya and Lu Bu. With just a kick and a punch button, you didn't think you'd be able to do a lot of stuff, but it's actually pretty versatile. By holding down the punch button you can charge up a special attack, and once you have a full power bar you just need to land it to do massive damage. All the characters also has a special attack that you can pull off by just doing a normal fireball motion. I think this game plays pretty well for what it is, and the computer opponent isn't too challenging to play against. Now with the fourth game on the list, COG, we step into the territory of the other completely overdone Chinese piece of literature, Journey to the West. This is another fighting game, and the irony doesn't seem to be completely lost on the developers, as this plays a lot like one of the many Dragon Ball games. Dragon Ball of course being loosely based on Journey to the West. In this one you play as Sun Wukong, the Monkey King, which obviously is the hero of the story, but this one is insanely hard. I couldn't even get past Zhu Baijie, which is the first opponent you face. Completely taking a step back from Chinese literature and folklore, we have a game called Cobra Mission. This is a pretty cool light gun game. Of course I didn't have a light gun for my system, so I had to boot it up in an emulator to check it out more thoroughly. It's also filled with wonderfully broken English, as you can see in this first mission, that reads, "At present at Kotakarome store there happened a killing accident made by the terrorists. The gangsters held hostage. They were surely the horrible killers who received strict training. Good luck." Cobra Mission does seem to be heavily inspired by Lethal Enforcers. It isn't incredibly long, but it is incredibly challenging. And in all honesty, it's probably one of the best light gun games I've ever played on the NES. Gaiapolis is a port of the arcade brawler by Konami by the same name. The original had a bit of RPG mechanics to it, where you attack enemies to level up, and you can also get pet companions to help you in the fight. The leveling up mechanic is still present in the Famicom version, but they've taken out the pet mechanic. Now, the arcade original isn't one of my favorite games. It's pretty decent, okay, and for what it is I think they did a pretty decent job with this sort of Famicom hack conversion thing. Here's another fighting game. This one is called Impartial Judge. Sometimes you can find this game under the name Super Justice King, which I personally think is a much greater name. Now this seems to be a game made in an engine that originally was used to create a Famicom ROM hack of a Super Famicom Dragon Ball Z game. Now you don't fly about and do stuff like that, but you can see from the redrawn sprites that this was originally a Dragon Ball game at one point. This one doesn't control super well either, and definitely isn't as fun as the first fighting game on the cartridge. Eighth game on the list, also a fighting game. Xing Ji Wu Shi, aka Super Fighter, is a Street Fighter 2 knockoff. The thing about Street Fighter 2 is that, even though it was a massively popular game and was pretty much ported to everything, it somehow never got an NES release. But Taiwanese ROM hackers more than made up for that by releasing a plethora of different versions of Street Fighter 2, including a number of ROM hacks, such as Street Fighter 2 Pro, Street Blaster 4 Pro 10, Street Blaster Turbo 20, or how about Street Fighter 5, 20 peoples, or Street Fighter 6, 12 peoples. This one is probably one of the more creative of the bunch, with completely redrawn sprites and backgrounds and new music. There's probably only half the cast though, as most of the characters are just clones of each other, and with just 2 buttons for fighting, you hardly get the same number of moves that you get in any other Street Fighter 2 game. Top that off with the fact that this just isn't very fun to play. The computer is incredibly difficult as they spam their cheapest moves over and over again. Now the final game in the cartridge is Golden Axe 2, but it's actually not. It's a port of Golden Axe 3 from the Sega Mega Drive. I'm honestly getting pretty used to the weird naming conventions by now, and I really don't mind them trying to port Golden Axe 3 as I think it's the best game in the series, but it just doesn't play as well as the original. Like the other ports, a lot of the moves have been stripped from the game, including the various grab moves and special attacks that really makes the original game so great. Like the other games in the series, there are still tiny sprites you can pick up out to have them drop magic potions and healing items, but magic potions works differently in this game. Unlike the other Golden Axe games where you collect more potions to cast a greater spell, here a single potion just makes the screen flash a little bit and all the normal enemies fall over.
So all in all, it is pretty interesting to discover these weird semi-undocumented Taiwanese games. But, you know, collecting them isn't really worth the price. Usually ROMs for these sorts of games are readily available on the internet, so, you know, just fire it up in an emulator if you really want to play it. But if you want to collect them, they're definitely out there. So if you're a hardcore collector, finding the original cartridges might actually be the way to go.